Hi again, and welcome to Storytime with Momma Grace. I'm excited to read you another story, and I'm even more excited that you came back to listen to the story. So thank you so much for joining me. Today, we get to read another fun story by Beatrix Potter from my Peter Rabbit book. This story is called The Tale of Two Bad Mice. And here's a picture of the two bad mice. And we're going to get to see what kind of mischief they get into. Are you ready? Might be a little hard to see. I hope you can see what's going on. All right. Once upon a time, there was a very beautiful doll's house. It was red brick with white windows, and it had real muslin curtains and a front door and a chimney. It belonged to two dolls called Lucinda and Jane. At least it belonged to Lucinda, but she never ordered meals. Jane was the cook, but she never did any cooking because the dinner had been bought ready-made in a box full of shavings, because it was toy food. There were two red lobsters and a ham, a fish, a pudding, and some pears and oranges. They would not come off the plates, but they were extremely beautiful. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive in the doll's perambulator. Perambulator is a very old word for a baby carriage or a stroller. There was no one in the nursery, and it was very quiet. Presently, there was a little scuffling, scratching noise in a corner near the fireplace, where there was a hole under the skirting board. Tom Thumb put his head out for a moment and then popped it in again. Tom Thumb was a mouse. A minute afterwards, Hunca Munca, his wife, put her head out too, and when she saw that there was no one in the nursery, she ventured out on the oilcloth under the coal box. The doll's house stood at the other side of the fireplace. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went cautiously across the hearth rug. They pushed the front door. It was not fast. It means it was not locked. So it opened right up. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca, here they are, making their way into the dollhouse. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs in the dollhouse and peeped into the dining room. Then they squeaked with joy. Such a lovely dinner was laid out upon the table. There were tin spoons and lead knives and forks and two dolly chairs, all so convenient. Tom Thumb set to work at once to carve the ham. It was a beautiful shiny yellow streaked with red. But the knife crumpled up and hurt him. He put his finger in his mouth. It's not boiled enough. It's hard. You have a try, Hunca Munca. Hunca Munca stood up in her chair and chopped at the ham with another lead knife. It's as hard as the hams at the cheesemonger's, said Hunca Munca. The ham broke off the plate with a jerk and rolled under the table. Let it alone, said Tom Thumb. Give me some fish, Hunca Munca. Hunca Munca tried every tin spoon in turn, but the fish was glued to the dish. Then Tom Thumb lost his temper. He put the ham in the middle of the floor and hit it with the tongs and with the shovel. Bang, bang, smash, smash. The ham flew all into pieces, for underneath the shiny paint it was made of nothing but plastic. Then there was no end to the rage and disappointment of Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. They broke up the pudding, the lobsters, the pears, and the oranges. As the fish would not come off the plate, they put it into the red-hot, crinkly paper fire in the kitchen, but it wouldn't burn either. Tom Thumb went up the chimney, the kitchen chimney, and looked out at the top. There was no soot. While Tom Thumb was up the chimney, Hunca Munca had another disappointment. She found some tiny canisters upon the dresser. There they are, labeled rice, coffee, sago. But when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside except little red and blue beads. There she is, dumping them upside down. Then those mice set to work to do all the mischief they could, especially Tom Thumb. He took Jane's clothes out of the chest of drawers in her bedroom and threw them out of the top floor window. But Hunca Munca had a frugal mind. After pulling half the feathers out of Lucinda's bolster, she remembered that she herself was in want of a feather bed. With Tom Thumb's assistance, she carried the bolster downstairs and across the hearthrug. It was difficult to squeeze the bolster into the mouse hole, but they managed it somehow. I think a bolster is like a really nice, big, thick feather bed that goes on top, like a comforter. It goes on top of the bed. Then Hunca Munca went back and fetched a chair, a bookcase, a birdcage, and several small odds and ends. The bookcase and the birdcage refused to go into the mouse hole. Hunca Munca left them behind the coal box and went to fetch a cradle. Hunca Munca was just returning with another chair when suddenly there was a noise of talking outside upon the landing. The mice rushed back to their hole, and the dolls came into the nursery. What a sight met the eyes of Jane and Lucinda! Lucinda sat upon the upset kitchen stove and stared, and Jane leaned against the kitchen dresser and smiled, but neither of them made any remark. The bookcase and the birdcage were rescued from under the coal box, but Hunca Munca has got the cradle and some of Lucinda's clothes. She also has some useful pots and pans and several other things. There's Hunca Munca. She has the little cradle, and she's using it for her little baby mice because they fit right in there just fine. The little girl that the doll's house belonged to said, "I will get a doll dressed like a policeman." But the nurse said, "I will set a mousetrap." So that is the story of the two bad mice. They were not so very, very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. He found a crooked sixpence under the hearthrug, and upon Christmas Eve, he and Hunca Munca stuffed it into one of the stockings of Lucinda and Jane. And, very early every morning, before anybody is awake, Hunca Munca comes with her dustpan and her broom to sweep the dolly's house. So they kind of wanted to make up for the mess they made. The end. Isn't that a silly story about two bad mice? And they have silly names, don't they? Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. That's a really silly name. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm glad you came to listen to our story about the two bad mice. I hope that you enjoy your day. Take care of yourself. Be safe. Remember that Papa Joe and Momma Grace love you very much. We think of you often. And we hope to see you again soon. So goodbye, but just for now.